How's it, guys? It's Linton here from Greenbox Markets. I've had a few clients ask where the gold price is going, so I thought we'd run through some analysis. Those of you who have been following my analysis and my channel on YouTube will remember the strategy video that I sent out. I think it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and in there we analyzed the gold chart. But I want to run through some more in-depth analysis regarding that chart today, so that you guys can see exactly what we're looking at. So let's start on the weekly chart. As you can see here on the left hand side on the weekly chart, we had this impulse up to quite a high price that it was trading around the 1,900 mark, which was really high, and that was back in 2011, looks like around about 2011. And since then we've been in a corrective structure over here. So we all know that what happens is you get an impulse, and then you get a correction, and then you get the second impulse. So all in all, we are expecting the gold price to go up eventually. But remember, we're looking at a weekly chart here, so that doesn't mean you can just buy gold now and expect it to go up. There is a possibility on smaller time frames that there could be large pullbacks before it moves in this direction. But overall, that is what we're expecting to see on the weekly chart. This could take some time to take place. I mean, if you look over here on the left-hand side, we can see it was around about September 2008 when this initial impulse started, and it ended around about February of 2011. So that's what, 4 years approximately, give or take a little bit. So, and this corrective structure over here, we've been in since that period, and we're still in it now. So 10 years later, we're still in the corrective structure. So guys, this could take a lot of time. And once we finally do get a breakout of this structure here and upside on gold, needless to say, that move could take time as well. Although quite a steep climb on the charts here for a 4-year period, it could also take approximately a 4-year period to get that kind of move going. So what we need to do is then we need to see when and where are we expecting to break out of this corrective structure on the weekly chart. And that is quite interesting on gold at the moment. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the wave movements, now remember, everything moves in waves. We can see here that what is expected is a 1, 2, 3 wave format. Complete that on the weekly chart. The move down was also expected in a 3-wave format, and that's why I'm saying it's possible that there's still downside to come on gold. Okay, so this structure over here is showing that we could expect a 3rd wave to the downside here. It's not set in stone though that this is the end of the 2nd wave on gold. Okay, so that is quite important to note. And the main reason I'm saying that is because things move in waves, and we haven't yet seen the completion of the 3rd wave on this structure yet. So if we do see 3 waves here, 1, 2, 3 waves over there, do you see that breaks the top of this trend line, or breaks this trend line to move to the upside? But what that would then do is complete a corrective structure for us in a 3-wave format, and we could then expect a move down from there to the bottom of the corrective structure on the weekly time frame. And altogether, that would then give us our 1, 2, 3 wave structure before we can then expect upside. So it's not guaranteed that this trend line over here is going to hold, and that is definitely the end of the 2nd wave, and we can now expect gold to simply move down. There is the possibility that we could see the completion of the structure first before we see the downside on gold. So it is important to note that, guys, and what we then need to do is obviously go down to smaller time frames in order to trade those accordingly. So the price is trading at a very strong level of support and resistance based on this trend line. And it's quite important what it does from here in order to see whether we're going to get this 3rd wave up to complete that structure first, or whether it's going to continue down to complete the 3rd wave on this bigger structure before we see upside. So let's go down to a smaller time frame and have a look at what I mean. I'm going down to the daily first. And here is that 3-wave structure that I was talking about that could still complete to the upside. Once that is completed, we will then obviously start looking for trades to the downside. But in the interim, while we don't know whether that's going to complete, we've got to trade this on smaller time frames to see exactly what's going on. Right, so on the daily, we're still on the daily time frame. I've just zoomed it in a little bit. Here we can see quite clearly the structure that completed 1, 2, 3 waves. Okay, and then it broke to the downside, so that trend line broke. What we then need to see is the formation of a smaller structure in order to get an entry on our trades. And that is what has occurred over here on the 4-hour time frame. So we had this structure break, 3 waves broken to the downside, and then if we go down to the 4-hour time frame, we can see exactly the same thing has taken place over here as well. 1, 2, 3 waves completed. So I'm quite happy with the fact that that initial structure on the daily broke, and it formed another structure on the 4-hour which broke. Let me just clear that for you. And then what I waited for in order to get entry into this position was the formation of a smaller flag, and I actually entered on the break of that small flag over there, and I'm still in this trade at the moment. Options, let me just show you here where my entry was, and there it is exactly. So there you can see my entry into this trade, and I'm still holding that trade at the moment. But what am I expecting to see? Right, so we have started a little bit of a corrective structure over here. And it is quite possible that it might be a slightly deeper correction, but I am expecting to see further downside before we see a turn in gold price at the moment. And the reason for that is, again, everything moves in waves. So we have a look at our wave structure that completed over here, 1, 2, 3, and then I would expect to move down from there also in a 3-wave structure, which gives us a 1, 2, 3, right? And then how do I get a target on that 3-wave structure? And that's quite simple. So what we do is we check the length of our initial impulse, and we simply take that and move it across to the start of the second impulse. And as you can see, it moves at more or less exactly the same speed and angle as well. So the bottom end of that line over there, giving us the same impulse length, is more or less in line with the previous low here. So that is the target range. That is what I'm aiming for as an initial target for this trade. I'm not saying that I will close the trade when it reaches that level. But what I will do is continuously move my stop loss further and further into profit as this price moves in my favor. Once it gets to this level over here, what am I going to wait and see? Or what am I going to look for? Let me just go back down to a smaller time frame here, just so that it's a bit more clear for you guys. Okay, so this was the structure that broke. I got into the trade over there, and this is my initial target that I'm looking at. It doesn't mean that it's going to go in a straight line to that target, guys, although this did move in a relatively straight line. So I'm not expecting too deep a pullback, but it can occur. So what am I expecting to see here? The price could move around a little bit in this area, form another flag, like it's doing at this point in time, and break that flag to the downside. Once it breaks that flag to the downside, I'll be very, very happy with that trade, and I'll definitely be holding it onto it all the way to this target over here. Once it gets to this target, I'm not necessarily just going to close the trade. And the reason for that is because there are targets on bigger time frames to the downside. So if that weekly 3-wave structure isn't going to break up and is going to continue down, I don't want to miss that trade. So I'm going to stay in this position. So when it gets to this target over here, the price moves down to here. What am I going to do? All I'm going to do is simply move my stop loss further into profit and move it further into profit. And make sure that I'm locking in profits all the way down on this trade. At this point here, I'm going to wait and see whether the price reverses and forms another flag. If the price reverses from this point and forms another flag and breaks that flag to the upside, that is where I want to exit that position. So I will close that trade if that takes place. Or alternatively, if my stop that I've moved down is triggered before that happens. What I would, however, like to see at that point instead of this is I would like to see the price break through that target area and then form a flag which it breaks to the downside. That is then an indication for me that we've got lower targets in play, and I will want to keep this trade for quite some time. Chances are likely that we would be able to see levels sort of in this region over here. Let's just get a price view there. Sort of the 1170 mark. So if this price continues down and it breaks my initial target over there and continues down to this sort of area over here, 1170 is more or less what we're looking at before I will then start looking for changes in direction again, using the exact same strategy. So a reversal with a flag formation or a continuation with a flag formation. So looking at gold, I do have initial targets to the downside here at around about the 1217 mark, and that's why I expect it to go before it changes any sort of direction. And then at that point, we'll have to see whether it breaks and continues or whether it turns back up to find resistance around about these areas here. Thanks for watching, guys, and I really hope that helps you with your analysis techniques and also to see what I'm looking at when I send out analysis. If you found this useful and you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends, as well as feel free to leave comments in the comment section below and let me know what you think about this video. Have a great day. Take care. Cheers.